Hi, boys and girls. My name is Miss Jennifer, and I'm a teaching artist in the Pace Art program. I'm here today to do a fun art lesson with you. I'm so glad that you could join me. Today, we'll be doing a science-based art lesson. We'll be learning about tropical fish, where they live, what they eat, and so much more. We will also learn fun facts about tropical fish and things that are found in an ocean. The supplies that you will need today will be 2 sheets of white paper, a variety of crayons, and a variety of markers. We will be using lines, shapes, colors, and patterns for our drawing today. We will be using markers and crayons to draw, and we'll also focus on doing some color blending with our crayons today. We will be drawing a picture of a tropical fish in its underwater ocean habitat. So, boys and girls, as you see here, I have 2 pictures of tropical fish. And there's something about these fish that make them really pretty. What do you think that might be? Well, I heard you say color. Tropical fish usually have a lot of different colors. And if you look here are a couple other different tropical fish that are in the ocean. Now that leads to, what is an ocean? Well, an ocean is a place where fish and other animals live. It is in the water. Now the ocean is a large body of water that has lots of different animals and plants that live in it. If you've ever been to the beach, well, that is part of the ocean. So here is a picture of the ocean. We will be talking about things that are underwater today in the ocean. So we're going to call that our underwater habitat. So a habitat is a place in which an animal lives, and in the habitat they need food, shelter, and water in order to survive. Well, let's think about that. If tropical fish live in the ocean, so we know that they live underwater, what is something that they could eat? Well, they could eat other maybe smaller fish. Well, tropical fish are well known for eating smaller fish, but they eat krill and shrimp. Krill is kind of like shrimp. They eat small crabs, they eat small squids, and pieces of plants that are under the water. And so that is what they eat. Now, how do they get their water? Well, that's a really easy one. They live in the ocean where there is water. And where would they find shelter? Well, fish and other animals in the ocean find shelter by hiding in rocks and all of this. Well, what is this? This is called coral. And coral is a small animal that doesn't have a backbone, so it is an invertebrate animal. And it has a hard sort of skeletal shell on the outside in which it hides in. Now, coral, amazingly, only eats really at night. It will come out at night, and it has these really long tentacle arms that reach and swoop food into their mouths. I thought that was pretty cool because when you look at them, they basically look like they're just rocks in the ocean. And so here are a couple of tropical fish in coral. Now, here are a couple other pictures of coral. As you can see, coral could be very different in size and shape. And here is another one. They are also different colors. And so yes, this coral is live, but it is covered with a hard skeletal shell, and so it looks like it would not be real, or it would not be alive. I thought that was pretty amazing. And here we go. Here is the bottom of the ocean floor. Now, what is the bottom? Well, the bottom is where the sand and things grow sort of from the ground. And so you can see the fish are all around the coral. Some are probably hiding, some are maybe eating. And so that leads us to something else. in the ocean, not only do we have coral, there's lots of other things that are in the ocean. But for today, we're going to talk about coral, and we're also going to talk about this plant. Does anybody know what this plant might be? Well, this plant is called seaweed, and seaweed is a plant that grows in the ocean. And so seaweed are tall plants that are found in the water. Sometimes you will see them floating on top of the water. Now, if you've ever gone to the beach and you've seen something like this, well, this is seaweed. This is seaweed that got washed up on the shore. But remember, it started out looking like this, and when it washed up to the shore, this is sort of what it looks like. And so seaweed is a plant. All right, so that leads us now into, we've talked about our ocean. Our ocean has salt water. Well, salt water is really important for these kinds of fish. There's salt actually in the water. Now, if you've ever gone fishing, you probably went fishing in what we call fresh water. Fresh water doesn't have salt, or maybe very little of it. And so, in order for these fish to live, they need salt water. So how many of you have ever seen these kind of tropical fish in an aquarium? Raise your hand if you have. Good job. Maybe you saw it at a pet store, or maybe at the zoo, or maybe you even saw it in your house. Yes, people actually have saltwater aquariums in their homes that have coral and seaweed and other things inside of them. So today we're going to be making our tropical fish, and we are about to get started with our drawing. I'm going to share some fun facts with you as we go through our lesson today, but let's get started. Let's get a marker. I'm using black. If you decide you want to use a different color, that is fine. We're going to start drawing our fish first. And when we draw our fish, we're going to draw our fish in the middle of our paper. I have my paper, so my paper is laying horizontally, but it's up to you if you want it vertically or horizontally. I decided I wanted it horizontally so that I could have room to make a really big fish. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start, and we're going to come down to about right here on our paper. And we're going to start, and we're going to make a really big curve, just like that. So let's make a really big curve in the middle of our paper. Awesome. Now, watch this. We're going to start at this part right here, and we're going to do the same thing, but we're not going to close it on the end. We want to keep it open, because that's going to be our fish's body. Awesome. All right. Now, I'm going to do the same thing here, because there are a couple things that I'm going to share with you today, and we're going to practice on one paper, and we're going to draw on our other paper. All right, so there's my fish. The first thing that I know my fish needs is an eye, and for his eye, we're simply going to make a circle about right here. So there we go. If you want to make another circle on the inside, you can do that too. Good job. All right, now fish have different body parts. And so if you look here at this goldfish, you will see here that we made this part of his body, and we started with his eye. Well, the next thing we're going to move over to doing is his fins. On the top and the bottom, he has fins. Fish use fins to help them to be able to swim. And so when we make our fin, it doesn't really matter if you make it sort of wavy like this. Maybe you want it to be maybe like this, or maybe you want it to be a curve. It's really up to you. So here we go. On the very top, we're going to make our fin. All right. So on the top of your paper, or should I say on the top of your fish, let's draw a fin. And I used a wavy line on mine here. Remember, it doesn't matter which way that you make it. All right. Now, the top fin is usually larger than the bottom fin. So if you look here, it's larger, and then it's sort of smaller at the bottom. So here, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. Right, the top one is larger than the bottom one. So draw your fins now. You should have a top fin and a bottom fin. Remembering that fish use fins in order to help them swim through the water. Right, so what part do you think this might be, boys and girls? It is the tail. Good job. And when we draw our tail, we're going to draw it on this part of our fish. And our fin could be lots of wavy lines if we want. Or again, you could maybe make your fish so that it's like this. I want you to practice making your tail on your fish before you draw it on your picture. So let's practice that now. Let's practice. If you need to, you can maybe even try to draw your fish on the side a little smaller, and you could decide what kind of tail you want on your fish. Good job. All right, now let's add it to our fish now. And I am going to make a really wavy tail on my fish. Now, there's something else that a fish has on its body. And right here, this part right here is called the gills. Well, the gills help a fish to breathe underwater. Sort of like we have lungs that help us breathe and we live outside of the water. Well, fish can't have lungs or they would not be able to breathe. And so they have gills. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make our gills. And the way that I'm going to make mine is I'm going to make 2 curved lines on my picture. But maybe you want it like this. Maybe you want to draw it a little smaller. It's really up to you. So let's practice and then let's draw it on our picture. Very good, boys and girls. Your fish are looking great. All right, now there's something else on our fish. And it's kind of all over our fish. And that is the scales. That's those little tiny parts right here. If you've ever gone fishing and had to clean a fish, that's sort of the part that you scrape off the outside of the fish. It's like little tiny circles usually that are sort of like clear and hard. And so those are the scales. And so we're going to make scales today on our fish, but we're going to make it in patterns. Patterns. Well, let's see how we could do that. So maybe we could practice where we have 2 straight lines. We could make circles in between. That would be a good way to make scales on our fish. So let's practice that. 2 straight lines and circles on the inside, making sure that your circles touch each other. That is one way that we could do it. Maybe we want to change that up. So maybe we could do this. Maybe we could do straight lines, and maybe we could even make it into rectangles. So we have 2 lines going across and small lines going down. That is another way. Or we could even maybe do this. What about if we do our letter V and we keep making our letter V to a W and then it turns into a big old long zigzag line? That is something else that we can do. Because today we are going to, as I said, talk about pattern. And so when we're coloring this in, we're going to color them in into color patterns. And so those are some different ways that you could make patterns on your fish. Maybe even wavy lines. You could do wavy lines. Maybe you want to put some dots in the wavy line. It's really up to you. So let's practice a couple of these different ways on your scrap paper. Good job, boys and girls. Now I'm ready to start adding my patterns or lines onto my fish. And now I'm not going to make it on the tail part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of make a curve right here. Can we all make a curve right here? And so that separates the tail from the body. I'm only going to work on my fish's body right now, and I want to add some of these different patterns. So here I go. I'm going to draw a curved line, and maybe in this pattern I will make my circles. So let's do that now. Remember, you can make any of these. You can even be creative and make your own patterns if you would like. Right, and I think I'm going to do the same thing to the bottom. So another curve, and I'm going to make my circles. Now I'm making my circles so they touch the top and bottom of my curved lines. But if you decided that you didn't want to do that and maybe you wanted your circles on the inside like this, that is also fine. Good job, boys and girls. Did you know that fish can swim super, super fast? Yes, they can swim so fast that sometimes you can't even see them because they sort of dart away so fast. And we know that fish are covered in scales. They have lots and lots of scales on their bodies. All right, now I'm going to try to make another one now. Maybe right in the middle here, I'm going to draw my wavy line. So maybe two wavy lines. Hey, maybe you might even want to draw zigzag lines and draw them together just like this. That is okay with me. All right, and here I want to draw lines going from top to bottom. So I'm going to draw some little vertical lines in my fish. Awesome. And you know what? Maybe inside of these two parts, maybe I could make it look like scales, and I could maybe make it with some curved lines like this. So maybe practice that first. All right, and so there you go. Now I have a fish that has lots of different patterns for its scales. Your pictures are looking nice, boys and girls. All right, now I think I want to also add something to my fins, and maybe I could draw some circles because we can be super creative. If we look here, this fish right here has lots of different lines, and look at this, he even has like little circles on his fins. You can notice all of the different colors. Here we sort of have the curved line like Miss Jennifer did here. And of course, on these fish, as you can see, there's lots of different lines and patterns going on in these fish. Look at this one. There's circles on the bottom of his body. That is something that you definitely could do on your fish. And notice all the different colors. When we start coloring, we'll be able to color lots of different colors. And here again, here's another one. Look at all of these different patterns. They don't all have to go in the same direction, and they don't all have to be the same. And again, these fish are very colorful because tropical fish usually are colorful. Now, goldfish are tropical fish, so are betta fish, so are the little zebrafish. And some of those fish don't have to live in salt water. A couple of them can live in fresh water, so they sort of can live in both. I thought that was pretty amazing. All right, so now I have my fish, and I think for my tail, I'm just going to sort of make some wavy lines. So just decide what you want to do for the tail, and that is fine with Miss Jennifer. I also want to make some circles, maybe one large, getting smaller and smaller as we go to the top. And those are little air bubbles. Sometimes fish let out air when they are swimming. All right, and then that takes us to the next part. And the next part will be our coral. Now, again, coral comes in lots of different colors. So you can decide what color you want and what kind you want. I'm probably going to make one that looks a little bit like this. And so here we go. I'm going to now use my wavy line, and I'm just going to sort of make my coral. At the very bottom of the ocean, we have something at the bottom. What do you think that might be, boys and girls? What could be at the bottom of the ocean? Sand. And sand sometimes has little dots in it. So like little dots of sand, maybe different colors, maybe little pieces of rock, maybe little pieces of shells. If you want to go ahead and add seashells to your water, you could also do that. It's really up to you. So I could make a little shell right here if I wanted to in the ocean. All right, so here's my seaweed, and so here, So here is my coral, and as you can see, I added some lines to my coral. Alright, now moving on to the next part is going to be our seaweed. And our seaweed is nice and green and long. So maybe on this side I could use my wavy line and I could make some seaweed. Add some lines if you want to the inside. And there we go. So now we drew our picture. The next part is to color our picture. Now, if you want, you could actually take your marker and you could trace along the edges of your marker that you used to add color to your picture. Maybe you want to color the whole thing with the marker, and that would be just fine. Or maybe you want to use the marker and you actually want to use crayons also. That is something else that you could do. So I could actually take a crayon and I could start to color in my seaweed with my crayon. Just like this. Alright, so I can add some dark green. I could even maybe add some light green to my seaweed. And sometimes, you know what? Maybe you could even add some yellow, because sometimes plants do have a little yellow on them. So here, I'm using 3 different kinds of colors. And so if we look here, we could color our dark green, and then maybe our lighter green right next to it. And if you color the yellow next to that, look how it looks like we are sort of blending or mixing our colors. And sometimes you can even color back on top with another color. So here's my dark green, and I used some yellow on top of it. And so we could do that while we are coloring. And so here I'm going to add my light green, and I'm sort of going to mix my colors together by coloring over my other colors just a little bit to blend or mix them together. That helps us to not have white spots that we did not color in on our picture. So today I want you to focus to try to color in all of those little white spots. So there is my seaweed. Now the next thing I think I want to do is I want to color my sand. And sometimes sand can be sort of a tannish, yellowish, brownish kind of color. And so here I sort of have a yellowish color that has maybe a little bit of brown. And so here I'm coloring in my sand. I am going to now get a dark brown, and I want to color in certain parts of it with my dark brown so that again it starts to look like it's blended together. And you might want to use a color like peach or maybe light tan, color over most of it, and that will blend your colors together. Alright, just like this. So now I have my sand. And now I'm ready to color my what, boys and girls? My coral. Good job. Remembering that coral could be lots of different kinds of colors. I'm going to use sort of this reddish purple color when I color mine today. And I'm going to color some parts of it dark. So here, remember, this is dark, this is light. So I want to color some parts dark because I really want those parts to show. All right, and I can even trace around the outside of my coral, just like this with my crayon. Now, if you decide that you want to color in your coral with your markers, you definitely can do that also. All right, and I'm going to very lightly, just like here, very lightly color it in between the dark lines that I made. All right, now I don't want to stop by just having one color. I want to add other colors. So maybe I could add some dark purple, and maybe that could be along the edges of my seaweed, just like this. If you want to put a little bit in the middle, you could probably do that also. Right, now I have 2 colors, but you know what? Why not? Why could I not add another color? So I want to add a 3rd color to my seaweed. And I think I might want to add a little bit of orange. So this is sort of a red-orange. Notice how you could use different colors, and by just using those different colors, crayons or markers, you make things very colorful. All right, and so there is my seaweed. Now, the next thing that I want to do is I want to do something before I color my fish, and that is I want to work on my water. All right, I will be using some blues and maybe some purples and other colors, but I'm going to start with a light blue. And I want to simply, very lightly, remember not dark, very lightly color in the water. Because we know that water is what color, boys and girls? Well, blue. Good job. All right, and so here we go. I'm going to color in my water very lightly. But I want to do something else. I want to do some dark areas where maybe I make it look like waves. Because in the ocean, we have waves. So if you want to practice maybe drawing your wavy line on your practice paper first, you can do that. And so here I have a wave and maybe another one on this side. Remember, this part's going to be darker, just like this. So let's make us some nice waves. You can make as many as you want. If you want to use your marker to draw your waves, you definitely could do that. Or look at this. Maybe you could draw it with your crayon, and then you could come back and you could just add parts of it with your marker, just like this, to make some parts of it look darker, just like that. Maybe you want to get creative. Maybe you want to have some purple in your water too with your marker. You can make some little dashed lines just like this. Awesome. All right, so there I go, and underneath your lines you could make it a little darker so that it actually looks like big old waves that are in your ocean. All right, just like that. Boys and girls, your pictures look amazing. Good job. I am liking them. Nice, colorful oceans. Another thing that I want you to know is that fish talk to themselves by making sounds. So they don't really talk, they just make sounds to each other. And fish have really small brains. That's pretty cool. There are over 30,000 different kinds of fish in the world. And so I thought that was some amazing information. And now I want to start coloring in my fish. And I'm making a pattern. So I'm going to skip one, color one, skip one, color one, skip one. And I think now I want to actually use my markers to do some coloring. So here we go. And you could decide on what colors you want to color your fish. I just want you to make sure that you focus on making some patterns on your fish, because a lot of these tropical fish have patterns. Orange, white, orange, white, orange, white patterns. Here are some blue, orange, blue, orange, blue, orange going across. Lots of patterns on these tropical fish that live under the water. All right, so there we go. So my fish now has a pattern on its tail, and I would probably even go ahead and make pattern here. So orange, skip one, orange, skip one, orange, skip one. I could maybe do pink next. So in between, I'm going to do pink. Now, let's think about this. Do all patterns have to be orange, purple, orange, purple? No, they could be maybe pink, pink, skip one, pink, pink, skip one. So it's really up to you. Maybe you could put another color in between. So there we go. So there are lots of different kinds of patterns. I want you to think about patterns that maybe you've seen before, or maybe that your classroom teacher talked to you about when you're coloring. All right, now I want to color those bubbles that my fish let out into the water. So there you go. Now I don't have time to finish coloring my picture, but of course, You will have more time to color yours later. Today, we learned about tropical fish and their ocean habitat. We learned fun facts about tropical fish. We drew a picture of an ocean with coral, seaweed, and colorful fish. We also learned about what these fish eat and so much more. If you have extra time, you might want to add another tropical fish to your picture. Or maybe even later you could draw another picture on your own and add maybe a couple of other colorful fish. I want you to take some time to share your picture with your family and friends. Maybe you can tell them what your picture is about. Until next time, let's keep making art.